Hello and welcome to the Vlogging Pod. Tonight we are talking to the author of Quest, Stacy Bennet. Welcome to the room, Stacy. How are you this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Feels like we got another boost of summer out there, so.
Yes, we do. But
Yeah.
I'll take the sunshine, but the heat I could leave.
Yeah, I hear that a lot, but I kind of like the heat. I don't know. I'm weird, I guess. I love the little toasty heat, but I hear that from someone else in the room too. She lets me know she doesn't like the heat either.
Well, I'm a fall girl. I love autumn. That's my favorite season, so I'm ready. And it's not because of pumpkin spice, but I'm ready for autumn to hit.
Oh yeah, I love the smell of pumpkins. I will admit that I do love the smell of pumpkins, especially pumpkin candles. So tonight I'm gonna go ahead and start my timer before I get too far ahead here. Tonight, what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about Quest. I don't know if many people know. Last time when you were on, we had a great talk, and we went over a little bit, but that's all right. That happens. So tonight, after I've read your book, actually I listened to the Audible, and it was fantastic. If you don't know, we're talking about Quest of the DreamWalker. I'm probably going to mess up the pronunciation of it. I think it's Corthian Legacy Book 1. Am I pronouncing that right?
That's right.
Awesome.
Yes.
For people who don't know, and I'm going to read a little, just the tip of the iceberg here on the bio so we won't lose too much. A scarred soldier, a soul-broken girl, and a defiant huntress. 3 lives thrown together by fate, bound by destiny, hunted by magic. But time is running out. And I'm telling you what, I was blown away by this. I don't want to give away too much because we'll try to do our best not to do that.
Yeah, spoilers are something I've had to really tiptoe around with this particular book.
So, the Quest is one of 3. And I have to be honest, I wanted this next interview because I fell in love with this book. And I interviewed you months ago, and I was more enamored by you then. But after reading the book, I was like, holy crap. Now, have you ever been told this before, that when you're writing, now, don't take this as an insult, but you're writing was so much different than what I expected. I mean, it almost sounds as if you had a European background. Does that make sense?
Really?
Yes.
I've never heard that before.
I don't know why, but it did. Have you ever been told that? Or have people said, man, this book sounds just like you?
I don't know if anybody's ever really compared me with the voice in the book before. So, yeah, I don't know. It always feels like something a little separate from me.
Okay.
Like, I'm never sure how it comes across. And people don't usually say a whole lot to me. I mean, they either like it or they don't say anything. Usually is the response I get, which is good.
Well, I have
but yeah, I don't know that anybody said, oh, it sounds like something you would write or sounds different from something you might write. So that's a new one for me.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll be honest with you. Where my comes from is usually where I have beta read for other authors. And the more I know the author, I kind of hear their voice when I'm reading the book. Now, yours was different because, and this could be the reason why, the accent of your, the person who read the book, who did the Audible, yes. And that could be the reason, too, that it sounded that to me, as if you had, I don't know, I could just picture you so much more scholarly, like you have patches on your jacket, and you're just so academic.
Erudite, huh?
Yes, really, I really was so impressed. Not to say that you are of a lesser caliber,
No.
Yeah, to me it was just, I was just blown away. Like there was so many more layers to you as an author than I would have originally thought. I mean, and not that, don't take that as bad either, but I was
I'm taking this all as a compliment.
Okay, good. Because that's exactly how I mean it. So as we talk about the book, so that I'm not just, fan over here fan praising. Ah! I love her so much. Let's talk about Kara. I have to say, the most developed character out of the entire story. Did you plot her in depth, or did you develop her as you began to write the story?
I would say that almost always when I write a story, I come across the nugget, the situation, the what if first.
Okay.
And then it kind of I say, okay, so if that's the case, and this one's got to be this way, and this person's got to be like that, and this one's going to be like that, and then as they start to interact, things change and things shift. And Neil Gaiman once said that you write a book twice. You go through it the first time, and then you go back and edit it as if you planned it all that way. And I think that's a little bit of what I do. Is they start out heading in a certain direction, and then I'm like, well, wait a minute. No, that's not how it goes. It goes like this. And then I'll go back and I'll add in more depth. And especially with DreamWalker, because I had so much time that I worked on it, I would go back in and just do Kara's chapters, or I would go back in and just do Fallon's chapters, or I'd go back in and just do the captain's chapters, so that I could really stay in their head and see where they would take me.
Wow. Now, when you do the separate chapters, well, no, are you talking about their chapters in order, as in the order of the timeline in the book, or would you just go back and write their chapters as, you know what I mean?
Well, I write the whole thing. We put all the sand in the sandbox first.
Okay.
And as you know, each chapter has the name of the person whose point of view it's from. Since for those who don't know, I write in past tense, third person limited, which means you're seeing the world in Kara's chapters from Kara's point of view. So you don't know what other people are thinking, but you do know what she's thinking. So then if I want to really get a good sense of her story, I'll take out everybody else's chapters and I'll read her story, like as if I'm following her through the whole story, seeing what she's seeing, hearing what she's hearing, through the story, so that I can make sure it's lining up with where we want to end up.
Right. So for most people who haven't read the book, let's talk a little bit about who Kara is. Can you tell our listeners just a little bit about her character?
This is always the hardest part for me as an author.
Okay.
Because, it's like, who's your brother? Well, do I tell you about the time, or, you know what I mean? So she is a woman who has had trauma in her life that she's not terribly aware of. And she's coming to the realization that she doesn't know as much as she thinks she knows. And so she ends up making a decision that changes the entire course of her life, which is to escape with the captain.
Right.
And I don't like to tell too much about who she really is, because I don't want to spoil anything.
Right. Well,
as the story goes on.
As far as like the bio that they can read on Amazon, the first paragraph is pretty much Kara is a prisoner. Now,
yes.
You really, when you first start reading it, that sort of develops. I mean, you don't know right off. You see this girl, she's, well, I guess from the captain's point of view, kind of like the gatekeeper, you know what I mean, for the person who's for the sorcerer who's kidnapped them. So as it develops, you really see her trauma, you know what I mean, because she doesn't. I don't think she really puts it into a formation of thought that she's a prisoner, because she thinks this is her father. So,
right, because she's been here her whole life. All that she can remember is living in the castle with this older gentleman who's a sorcerer who says he's her father. So as far as she knows, that's her dad, and this is how life goes. This is what it comprises, and she never leaves. But to her, it's not strange, because she never knew anything else.
Right.
So in a way, she's very childlike.
Yes.
Because she doesn't have any interactions with anybody except him, and he has a certain agenda to keep her that way.
Right. That's why I said that from the very get-go, she has to be the most developed character. And I don't just mean right off the bat. From point A to the end of this book,
yeah.
She progresses so much so.
Well, she's a long journey from being, a prisoner who's never seen the outside world to someone who's traveled half the country.
Yes. Yeah, I can see if magic and knights and fights and all that kind of thing, people, have different genres that they say they like or dislike. From someone who probably isn't into the genre, I would find it very hard not to read this book or listen to it. I enjoy the audibles. I'm just going to say that right out front. I love audibles.
Me too. So, I'm a huge Audible fan.
Yeah, huge Audible fan. Right. I love to be able to do other stuff, work out, in the car, wherever I'm at, and be able to listen. And anyways, it's hard not to engage in this story and not be pulled in, even if it is not your genre. I really was totally amazed about how immersed I was into the book. It really just dragged me in, it really did.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Because
I wouldn't say it if
I
wouldn't say if I didn't mean it, truly. So, poetically, one of probably the greatest fantasy tales of this one follows a miraculous, it's well written, it's natural for you. You know what I mean? It just seems to come right out. So tell me about the rewriting, how you went into your editing and all that kind of stuff. Did you find that you had to do a lot of that, or was it...
Well, with this particular book is, they tell authors, don't worry about the first one you wrote, stick it in the drawer, keep going.
Right.
Because it's never going to turn into anything. Well, I'm kind of stubborn, and I'm very attached to this story. So I actually wrote the first draft when I was 18. And I put it in the drawer because I just had the urge to write it one summer when I graduated high school. I just wrote it. Like, I just spend my evenings writing. I don't know. It's kind of a strange thing to do, but I did. And I didn't really pick it up again until I was almost 30. And at the time, my ex was unemployed and he was writing a book. So there was a lot of downtime for me. So I was like, oh, I'll just pull my book out and I'll rewrite it. And so I had changed a lot of elements. So it has changed quite a bit. And then again, I ended up putting it down because I had kids and then you're busy. And then I got a divorce. And then after the divorce, I was like, you know what? This book doesn't let me go. Because I used to pull it out and just read it for myself because I enjoyed the story. Not because I'm saying I'm a great writer or anything, but the story has really stuck in my head. And I just would reread it just to re-experience it myself and change things a little bit, So I think it's gone through a couple of distillations. So in this particular case, then I decided I wanted to actually publish it. And I had a couple of editors look at it. And I really went through, reading books on what you need to have and how to do tension and all the nitty gritty kind of stuff. And I went back and looked at it from that point of view. And then I edited it. So it had been written a couple of times, actually, but only because it wouldn't let me go. It never, and even now I've been having a lot of issues with the writing in the last couple of months. I don't know if you know, but I've moved from New Jersey to Delaware. So it's been a great upheaval this summer. One of my adult children moved out, another adult child moved in. It's been a lot of upheaval. So it hasn't been a really conducive doing my writing at this point.
I feel you.
And I'm just getting back into it here now. But the story still, even when I put it down, there are days when it's like, I gotta finish. I gotta bring it out. I gotta go through it because I know that I have an issue at this part and this plot line's wrong, so I gotta fix it before I publish it. So it still won't let me go.
Right.
So that's why I keep working at those. For all those people who despair of book 3 ever coming out, it will come out.
Okay, so
it's just been on hold.
I feel you. I haven't gotten through all of them yet. Like I said, I'm more into the audibles. And I do know you have another one. I need to get my hands on that as well. So let's talk a little bit about the captain, a mercenary kidnapped by a sorcerer. an exile with his own dark secret.
Right.
Tell me about how you were able to hone his demeanor, because he is very. I wouldn't say that he's a typical man. Um, your bio is pretty accurate on he does have his own secrets. So tell me how
Yes.
you did about developing. Tell me the research that you did on this character, or even if somebody that you pulled from in your life that you developed him from. Tell me how he came about.
I think he might be my best book boyfriend. Like it would be it would be if I were in a romance or an adventure, who would I want to ride up and join me on this story? And I think it's someone who has his own issues, and he will be working through them, trust me. I mean, and even the third book is more about him than the other two. And that has his own journey. Like, he does sort of have a pull towards Kara right when they meet. Like something is going on, but that's not all of it. That's not all of him. That's not his whole reason for being there. Like, her reason for being there isn't for him to save her, and his reason for being there isn't her. Like, they have their own stories to go with, and that's what I wanted. I wanted a story that had more tales than just, them together or just this one storyline, because in my head they turn into people.
Right.
And then, so for example, after I wrote this, I had written Tales of the Archer, which is the companion novel, which is also on Audible. And it's Archer's backstory. Now, Archer is, for those who don't know, he's the secondary male lead, and he's the foil to my captain. And he actually is pretty modeled after one of my brothers that I get along with really, really well. He's a doll. I love that brother. And I love them all, but he's special to me. So Archer's kind of modeled after that. Anyway, Archer ended up getting this history when I wrote this this little challenge that I did to make a novella. And then when I went back to write book 2, I had to change where it started, because where I had it start now had history for Archer that wasn't there when I wrote it the first time, because now I've got this history that he had that I'm like, oh, wait a minute. We can't just gloss over this, because anybody who's read the companion is going to say, hey, what about this? What about this guy? What about that guy? What happened? So it sort of expands every time I turn around. It expands. So with the captain, I set the magic system, and he represents one side of it. And so I had to think about how his country would be, and how would he react in the country he's in, being who he is, and how does that affect how he's going to interact with her.
Okay.
Because you'll find out in the next book a little bit more about who he actually is too, because they both, she's a prisoner, he's a mercenary. That's how the books start, but that's not the whole story. They both have, neither one of them is from that place. They're both from someplace else, and they both have more history than just that, and they both have powers. So you get into that whole thing.
Right. So now we mentioned Kara, we mentioned the captain, you just mentioned Archer. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Fallon. In your bio,
my favorite girl.
Yes.
She is my favorite to write. I have to say.
I have to tell you though, I don't want to give anything away, but just where her and Kara are, I was really just so blown away by the ending.
Yeah.
Mixed emotions.
It's just rough. It's rough.
It was, and I'm not even sure how
you feel about how you want it to end.
Yes,
you don't know where you want it to go.
Yes, I'm, and like I said, I know this isn't fair to the audience because I don't want to give the story away. But I was really I'm not sure how I feel about it. You know what I mean? I just was left on the fence. Anyways, I want to get too far on that. But let's talk about Fallon. Sorry. In your bio, you say it's not yet a huntress, Forest Haven, Brutal and cold, she is sworn to kill any man who trespasses their sacred forest. When the mothers give her a task that will mark her as a traitor, she must choose between her old life and her new destiny. So, more than she appears to be right off the bat. But I was blown away when I knew more about her. So tell us your first thoughts of her creation.
Well, she was, I mean, that was part of the nugget. Kara's personality juxtaposed with Fallon's was part of the, gee, I wonder if you wrote a story about this. I wonder if this happened, what would that be like for these two people? So part of her was, you know, set because part of Kara, like the way they are together is that interaction, that relationship is set. And then when I went from there, I just thought, well, if she needs this and needs to not be like this, how is she going to act? And, you know, it's kind of like, it's hard to explain without giving it all away, but she has certain personality flaws, and I tried to make her an earnest, good person within the bounds of those personality flaws.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Okay. Again, I've read the books.
Yeah, so you can see where I was going with that.
Yes.
And it just got to the point where I just love her so much. You know, she takes things in stride even when she's not taking things in stride. Like, she just keeps going.
Right.
That's part of her nature, is she just keeps going and is still trying to, and that continues in the next book. And if you think it's hard knowing what comes next, I mean, I've had friends say when they finish DreamWalker, wow, you really like to write challenges, don't you? Because I have no idea how you're going to write the next one.
No.
I have no idea how you're going to do this.
I fully agree. We've done our 20 minutes. However, I want to have just one more question. First off, I have to applaud Zachary Johnson, who did the Audible. Fantastic. I encourage everybody to go get this book. Seriously, you will be blown the freak away. For a better yeah, we don't curse. Better freak away, okay? You know what I'm talking about. It is phenomenal. It is absolutely phenomenal. Really, it is. It really is. So, for my final question, and I know this might be hard, we want to wrap so because I don't want to go over my time on any more than we are, but tell us give us a little bit of a teaser of the next. I know it's already out, but could you summarize the teaser of the next book?
So, Kara ends up leaving a battle, and then when Kara leaves, she goes to try and actually find where she's from, and she's been separated from the captain, and she's completely sure she's in love with him, and he kind of thinks he's in love with her, but he's been through a lot of trauma. They got separated, so she thinks he's dead, and at a certain point he's going to think she's dead, and then he's going to come after her. So that's a lot of what Call of the Hunter is about. It's about Kara and Fallon's relationship with each other, and about the captain deciding, is he going to keep being this isolated, gruff mercenary, or is he going to decide to change his life and try to find this woman and maybe do something completely different? And to do that, he's going to have to face his past, because that's where she's going. Right. She's going where he can't go. And
so just so everybody knows, there is so much magic, action, adventure. It's not just a romance. I know we're talking about these characters.
Not just a romance,
yeah, we're talking about these characters intertwining, but you are so driven by the storyline that it's just phenomenal. When I listen to this,
that's why I said she's not just his romantic interest, and he's not just her romantic interest. There's more going on than just that, and they have their own journeys.
Yes.
So it's about, more than just that.
Right. If you are into the battles that go forth with the sword, you are about the wizards and the magic and the journey of the adventure of the books, please reach out to the Corinthian Legacies.
Corinthian Legacy.
Right.
If you like animal companions, too, we got a lot of good animal companions in these.
It is phenomenal. Thank you so much, Stacy, for being on the program
tonight.
Thank
you so much. You've been so generous with your praise. I really appreciate it.
I would not say it if I didn't mean it, I swear. Okay?
As soon as Zach gets book 2 done, because he has it, it's in his queue. He's very busy right now, but as soon as he gets it done, I will be giving you a code.
Awesome. Well, I'm telling you what, once we read the next book, I'd love to have you and Zach back on if you want to do that, if you'd be interested.
Sure.
I think that would be real. We're going to have to get together and really talk about what we want to talk about without giving the story away, though. So we're going to have to sit down.
Yeah, it's really hard.
It is, but
if you want to hit me up about the book to talk about when other people aren't listening, I give you more gouge.
Right. Well, I think
what goes on.
I think we should, because, like I said, I think we should write it out so that way we're not giving it away too much, but we are bringing the readers in to tease just a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We'll see you next Thursday. Bye-bye for now.